Hello, my friends. Welcome to the fourth episode of our playlist Flutter in Depth. Today, we'll talk about one of the major and important widgets in Flutter, which is raw. Let's say you want to arrange your items in horizontal way. Let's say you have a list and its items are in horizontal way. How you can do that? We can do that in Flutter with a widget called row. Row has a property called children. It is where you put your items in it, so you can show them in horizontal way. Let's create a container. Let me demonstrate that. We give some height 100. Sorry, give the width 100. Color colors dot blue. Let's check everything works perfectly. Now let's duplicate it and change the color to black. Now, as you can see, now the items are arranged in horizontal way. Now, as you can see, the main axis for the row widget is the horizontal axis, x-axis, but they are not centered in the horizontal axis. So how we can center them? A row has a property called main axis alignment. Now let's make it to center. As you can see, now they are centered to the x-axis. So let's then make them at the end of the axis, or let's say back to default in the start. You can manage. It has more than one property. You can space between, space around, space evenly, like that. Now if I want to change their position due to the vertical axis, make them at the start or at the end, or they are default now to the center. A row has a property called the cross axis alignment, and the cross axis for the x-axis is y-axis, the vertical axis. We can change. Let's make them at the start. Cross axis start. Now as you can see, they are at the top of the row widget, the start. Or we can change it to the end. Now they are at the end of the row widget. Now my friends, let's get this back to the center. Okay, now it's good. As we talked in the previous episode, that expanded and flexible widget can be used only inside the layout widgets like row and column, and cannot be used outside it. Now if I want this container to take the available width of the x-axis for the row widget, I can wrap it with the expanded. Now, as we said already, that the expanded force the children, its child, to take the available and the rest of the width in the row widget, but in the column it forces them to take the available or the rest of the height of the column widget. Now as you can see, now it's deleted. If we change the width as we want, let's make 1000, nothing will change because it's forced them to take the constraints height and width from it. Okay, just the width in the row widget and the height in column widget. Okay, now I think let's use flexible to do the opposite. Flexible, as we mentioned, as or explained in the previous episode, take the minimum available space to wrap its children. Okay, now as you can see, now change the width to, let's say, 80 to wrap it, because it does override the child constraints. Now, as we finished explaining the row and column widget, now we can use them together. You can make a row of columns or columns of a row. No problem. Now let's make this row contains two columns, for example. With this, each column has its children. No problem. Let's delete this flexible one. Remove the widgets. Let's take these two containers. Children, let's column children, and let's duplicate it. As you can see, there's no problems with this center. Okay, no problem. Space between, no problem. Now, why this happened? Because the column take the available height, and as we mentioned, because we didn't give the container a height or anything or width, let's take the available one, which is the size and the width of the screen. We can let's center this column, which is children. Now let's make them the main axis to the say center. As you can see, you can copy it. Okay. Now, after we demonstrate the row widget and the column widget expanded and the flexible widget and container, you can play with them as much as you can to understand them. And I'm ready to answer any question you have in the comments. And please stand by with me for the next episode because we will explain about the scrolling and some of the errors that may you see in the future. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and ring the bell.